What's good? You rocking with your boy TheCzarr, All Rights Reserved. Now, first we're going to start off with a few topics, and then we're getting back into two that I have written down and noted, commenter questions that we're going to answer. You know what the deal is. Hit the Cash App, support the channel. Everything's going to go towards business ventures as far as building the channel up, building the branding, and everything around TheCzarr All Rights Reserved. You may see anonymous people come in with player hatred, but I want you to keep in mind, when you have a growing channel on YouTube, if you're not a YouTuber, you may not understand that larger YouTubers go under anonymous names and begin to attack. I already know who the one individual was. I already addressed him. He wants to be on my related channel so bad, but here's my thing. I can't help that. I can't help who wants to be a related channel, nor when these larger YouTubers come in and try and say things off balance. They normally have 500,000 people that follow him. He has more than that. So I don't know what his reasoning is for even coming on my channel as he does, but you'll see that time to time. He won't come under his real name, and they normally won't. But if he comes under his real name, we'll have some fun with him. I don't know what he's thinking, but it's cool. I'll let him go for now. I'll let him do what he wants to do. But we're going to get into the subject. Prosecutors have actually came out and requested DNA from the suspects. Now, why is this a big thing? This is a very large thing. And excuse me, I got to collect a few things that I need. I work hard. I work 9 hours today. So I'm about to grab these things that I need so tomorrow I'm not rushing. Basically what I'm trying to say, and didn't he seem like he talked louder, like he wanted to be on YouTube? I don't know. But here's my thing. The whole justification behind this, you have to be careful. Their lawyers have to be smart. Here's the thing that can happen. These guys can request to have this DNA and things, and their DNA could actually end up on the evidence. See, I thought of that very well. Yes, they could be cordially asking for it, or someone behind the scenes allegedly could be cordially get things mixed up on accident, and one of their DNA can end up on something when it wasn't there before. And I'm only saying this because of how late they found things into the game. Now, this is just a speculatory activity. I'm pretty sure they all down in Florida work to the rules. But what's the justification that they have to know that these people are working towards the rules, especially this late in the case requesting DNA? That's what disturbs me. Usually requests of DNA and all things of that sort are asked for up front. It's not something you wake up one day like, oh, let's ask them for their DNA. And get this, and did you notice this too? They didn't request for their DNA until after they allegedly found evidence. Why? Why? If you knew that you had evidence up front of some sort, why didn't you request the DNA up front? Think about it. It makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Like, wait, why didn't you ask for this from the jump? Especially when you got all four men. But no, here's my thing. And here's where investigators messed up. Why would you have it released that you found DNA and stuff and bragged about it? And now it even leads to the speculation because you bragged about it. You bragged about having the evidence. Now you're requesting DNA right away. You could be trying to test it against what's there, and things could accidentally get messed up. And because we don't know who's doing the DNA investigation because we didn't see forensics on the scene. Again, I have photos of everything that went down. I don't have photos of any forensics. So if anybody has forensic people that were there on the scene, please send me that. I do not have that. Let alone how late you're requesting this and having found everything. It was in your backyard, but you ran to the federal government to help you. You found these men, but you didn't do pre-investigations. What were y'all doing all this time? When they were out there, the special forces actually finding the people you needed, what were you doing all this time? So you were just sitting behind your desk looking up what? And you still didn't make key connections that I made on my own to certain information. So it's leading me to believe that if I were their lawyer, I would fight against them requesting this. I would need to know why. I would need to have them preemptively take their samples of the clothing. And if they're trying to match it to something, what are you matching it to? clothing, a weapon, evidence. What level and what kind of evidence are you matching this to? You know what I'm saying? Like, at least let us know what you have and what you're holding that you're going to match to a suspect. Now, again, I believe that these investigators are fully credible and that they're doing this, but what's the evidence? And then I would really push to suppress the evidence in some way, shape, or fashion, because it was found late. It was found by one guy. So you found it in a specific suspect's car. Why do you need all of our DNA? If you found everything on one guy, you don't have nothing to implicate me at the. I didn't go to his grandma's house. I didn't go to his grandma's car. So why do you need my DNA? And my thing is, the only person first they should match it to is Michael Boatwright, if anything. And if it doesn't match him, then make your decisions. And then that gives them time as lawyers to move with different files and different things to suppress any type of evidence and do a plan B if they do find evidence that does not match Boatwright. That would be the only person who is credible in this situation to have to provide some type of evidence if they found it, because of the location being somewhere homely to him. It has no connection to any other suspect, evidence wise, research wise. So it's very important that they think logically and they make the decisions they have to, because I don't like the fact that they're doing things this way. I don't get why every suspect needs to provide DNA, but that's when it comes to a good lawyer that knows how to fight back and say, no, you make up the reason, like, you have to literally check the person's area you found it in. You don't have anything linking my suspect or my defendant to that crime scene, nor do you have them linking it. Look, here's what I'm saying. They didn't find this evidence at the crime scene, number one. Number two, you had to go on a manhunt for the rest of the people. Then after you did like a 2-week, 3-week manhunt, now you're saying you found evidence. I don't think I want my client to provide you with anything until you run tests against the suspect whose location you found it at. Point blank. Point blank. That would just be the most sensible way. And, they may not say it that way. They may push it through another way, but that's the ideology. There's no way my client that lives halfway across town is going to supply DNA evidence when you found it at client B, who lives right in the spot where you're at. And now you're saying we all owe you DNA evidence? No, you don't have nothing to link my guy to it. And yes, they're pushing it through court, but you can always subdue that type of evidence due to reasoning and just many different details that don't match up with the situation. Now, are the lawyers this smart? I don't know. Are the lawyers going to move this way? I don't know. But I'm telling you flat out, the sensible thing as a lawyer would be to, not now. And you do anything to not provide DNA evidence. Because again, the fact they found it late, number one. Number two, it wasn't found at the crime scene. Number three, you don't even have any clear evidence to link any other suspect but the one you found this supposed evidence at. Let alone you're here pushing this agenda to collect all of our DNA when you don't have the rights to even do it. But now you're doing it because, as Robert Allen's lawyer, I just stepped forward and moved to dismissal of the case from lack of evidence. Now, are you trying to make evidence? It's just something that you think of as a lawyer. And this is an objective thought. They could have legitly found the evidence when they run Michael Boatwright's DNA. Nothing of Michael Boatwright's is on it. Then that's when situations get sticky. Then that's when you can have my client's DNA. But even when you're doing the DNA testing, I would want a representative of me there. You know what I mean? We want to see you do this testing if that's possible. Now, I don't know to that length a possibility during an investigation of this magnitude, but it would just be a thought. Like, I don't even want to think something's been misconstrued if you're taking my DNA and then placing it on something, then saying, oh, you were here and you did it. It's just a thought. No one's perfect. That's the ideology. How do I know to fully trust the individuals doing the testing versus individuals who are trying to set me up in this situation because I moved for dismissal because you don't have any evidence from the crime scene to link me to it? it's all about thought. It's all about thinking ahead. And I think it would be a very strong factor, and it would show good fortitude for the lawyers to move in this way, shape, and fashion. Prosecutors moving for this type of demand, at this point in time when the crime was committed nearly a month and a half ago, it just seems real shaky. It just seems like it's something that is out of the blue, if you know what I'm saying. And when you have these out of the blue situations, you really don't want to play around. You don't want to take the chance. So I would be very critical of them collecting anything from my from my client and their alleged suspects at this time, especially being the different type of mistakes they made when doing the case. And we talked about those mistakes, especially doing with the fact that these individuals didn't even collect evidence that was prominent from the crime scene. Now you're randomly finding it in one of the suspects' car. Everything just sounds kind of crazy. And as a lawyer, you got to think in the back of your head, does this really make sense? Does this fit with the MO of normal criminal investigations? No, nothing does. Not one thing about this fits with a normal investigation. So depending on how good we find that these guys really are, we'll see their ability to think on their feet and whether they're able to challenge the requests made by the prosecution through the courts for a DNA sample. Again, I would rule against it. I would fight it tooth and nail. You'd have to have blatant evidence that's presented. The judge would need to know the evidence presented. I would need to have somebody present, if possible, to see you do this testing, because now you're randomly finding evidence. Also strange, but we'll see how it turns out. It's up to those lawyers. I hope they got good lawyers, and I can tell Michael Boatwright's free lawyer is ready to make a name. So shout to him, all respect to him, and I hope it goes well. But you know how I rock. All rights reserved.